Hello and welcome. I am Ashysaurus, aka Ashy, and today we're going to be talking about all the latest stuff that came from the Comic-Con for Dragon Age. We're going to be talking about the panel, the interviews, and a lot of other stuff that's just come out recently about Dragon Age. So let's jump into it because we got a lot. If this is the type of content you like to see, Dragon Age, bioware, or news, then you're in the right place. So like and subscribe to see more. Let's jump into it.
You have news?
Let's start off with the blog post that BioWare has posted about Comic-Con unveiling the Veilguard cast and characters detailed at San Diego Comic-Con. Comic-Con has come to a close, but before delivering a mountain of Dragon Age fun and amazing fans
attendance,
highlighting the week and about the cast panel on Friday and how they shared new insights on their characters and revealed even more lore about Dragon Age Veilguard. They were also joined by their partners Dark Horse on the show floor for fan signings, giveaways, cosplay photo shoots, and more. They also added pictures for those who missed out on the weekend. The post continues in talking about everything that kicked off on Wednesday at Dark Horse's booth, opening with some giveaways, and the team also enjoyed celebrating Dragon Age with their partners at the fandom party on Thursday night. Then on Friday, they had their panel, Dragon Age Meet the Heroic Companions of Veilguard, which featured Zach Mendes as Canis, Jessica Clark as Neve, Nick Borain as Emrich, Ali Hillis as Harding. The panel opened with a bit of background from the creative director, John Epler, and the creative performance director, Ashley Barlow, who has helped to cast and direct over 1,000 conversations brought from hundreds of characters and storylines to life. As Epler explained Dragon Age the Veilguard, these players embark on a perilous quest to face powerful elven gods and stop the apocalyptic destruction they're unleashing. You'll step into the role of Rook, battling on the front lines alongside a deep and compelling cast of companions who together comprise the Veilguard, a group of heroes who have come together to stop the Veil from breaking and bringing about the end of the world. Rook must become the unexpected leader who will rally and unite the group. Throughout the game, you can explore detailed storylines of each companion, navigating love, loss, and complex choices that influence your relationship. Companions have always been such a big part of the franchise. Epler asserted at one point during the panel, you'll navigate some of the most compelling individual storylines you've seen from BioWare. I'm really excited about the bonds players will form, Barlow later added. I feel like you can fall in love with any of them. Everyone that has touched this project has put a piece of their heart onto it and onto all of the different characters you could cross paths with. I know for me, at times, in the companion stories, it felt like I was watching a scene out of my own life. It's a powerful feeling to have something or someone to relate to on screen. As soon as Zach was cast, deep dove into Dragon Age, read everything he got his hands on. He did it all to create that depth of character you can really feel. Barlow remarked, Zach's a comedian. He would easily find humor in anything Lucanus was saying. And sometimes I'd have to remind him he's a deadly assassin and to stay bloodthirsty. But I think he found this cool way of finding the light in the darkness. After I finished the wig maker job, I realized that this might be the coolest guy I ever get to play, Mendes said. What struck me was his mind is as dangerous as his knives. He's constantly attuning himself to the kind of shifting terrain of every mission. And also, he's kind of hilarious. I mean, if you look at his relationship with his cousin, Ilario, in the wig maker job, they're constantly giving each other crap. There's a lot of love there. So I got the pull from my relationship with my brother because we love each other dearly, but we can be ruthless with each other. Mendes also reveals to fans, in addition to voicing Lucanus, he actually recorded lines for a variety of other characters, including the Grey Wardens. I can go ahead and play a bunch of characters, so I had to really steep myself into understanding that that's okay. The Grey Wardens go through a lot to actually do what they do. They make pretty intense bonds, so I tried to bring that as best as I could to the physicality. I cannot wait to see how it plays out in game. Following a few more clips from Zach, the conversation moved to Jessica Clark and the Shadow Dragon Rebel Neve, a scenic with a heart of gold who cares deeply about helping people and never leaves work half done. She also has ice powers to hold an enemy or take advantage of the environment. I describe her as a working class hero trying to make her hometown better. I love her loyalty, Clark shared. I love her dedication. I love how much she loves Docktown and its people and how she really sees a different vision that I'm into. As John said, and then what's previously has been depicted, she's really fighting for those people and she loves those people. Clark also commented on her experience with the casting and recording process. Even though the cast members were all separated, disembodied voices, a lot of the time we really bonded. I know a lot of the projects, they're like, we love each other, but we really do. And just involved so organically. There was something magical about it being our voices in the beginning. Next up was Nick Barain, who plays as Emrich, a sincere, friendly, and scholarly necromancer who comes complete with a skeleton assistant, Manfred, voiced by Matthew Mercer of Critical Role. He's part of Mournwatch, Epler explained, an elite group of necromancers who are revered in Navarra. But outside of it, they are odd at best and evil at worst. He's your well-meaning but obviously academic, assuming everyone has an academic curiosity, so can be pedantic on select topics. While Barain agreed, he found another aspect of the character more remarkable. I love the fact that the writers took Emrich and explored the whole idea of death and the whole idea of necromancing by bringing kindness into it. I really responded to that and got into that. I know it sounds crazy. It's not to have this idea that death is vulgar or something to be terrified about, but it's actually something to engage with on so many levels. I just love the fact that the writers have the courage to do that in a game like this. Barlow chimes in to share the insights of her time working with Barain. Nick encompasses Emrich, his sophistication and eagerness to teach and learn, his hot nerdiness. Often Nick is playing off of someone making a sound and he takes it, internalizes it, and gives it a meaning and care, which is amazing to watch. Finally came Ali Hillis, and everyone's favorite dwarven scout, Lace Harding, who returns with a big heart, positive outlook, and some unexpected magical powers. The world's changed a lot in the time period since Inquisition, Epler observed. She returns as an excellent scout and archer and has been leading teams through the wilderness while covering friends in the battle. Favorite things about Harding are the little things like she loves her mom. You know, she loves to write letters home and she's always talking about her mama's stupid stuff. I love that relationship. She likes plants and raising plants, which is inspirational since I killed him, but just the texture that they add to the character. That's in general, but for me, it's those little things that kind of give me a bunch of stuff to work within my brain. Barlow effused. Ali brought a weight history to this project as an anchor of the series. There was growth to Harding. She's a veteran now, she's a trusted voice at the table, and the writers did a great job integrating her with the new team and finding the relationships with each other with each of the unique characters. And that was the last quote from this. They talk about photo ops and they mention a bunch of stuff that they did at the Comic-Con, that they had like exclusive Discord pins for people who are there who mentioned that they were part of their Discord. They also had that they were signing posters that they were giving away and meeting the fans on the show floor. They also said that there will be footage of the full panel available in a couple weeks, so we still got some time before that comes out. And then they said that they hope that they enjoyed their favorite moments at Comic-Con, which I'll be flashing on the screen. They also said that they have more to share next month, which is this month, August. They said including a new roadmap, more looks at the game, and their official release date. So that's that. They were saying that there will be at a later date a video, but if you want to read the panel already, Phallus on Lives on Twitter posted that they have a whole transcript on their Tumblr. I will put that down below so you guys can read the whole thing, because I'm not going to read every word from that. That would take me so long. But I think if you wanted to read more than just the blog post or hear the blog post, you can just go and look at that. And they'll have a video soon, and I'll talk more about that if there's anything different. Moving on. In more Comic-Con news, there was someone named Rivermer who posted on Twitter about a statue of Neve and a kunai / dagger from Dragon Age the Veilguard, the one that you see in the art, that's the key art. And then they also posted the book that was at their stand booth thing of the art book, so that was also there. I just wanted to mention that too, which is really cool. And I'm pretty sure the same person mentioned that Neve may not be the only statue that's going to be made from them, so we might be seeing more merch for other characters. In a report from this website, it was WCCF Tech, I think. They said that EA and Paradox won't be showing Dragon Age, and they won't be showing off the Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines 2 at Gamescom. So if you're excited to see Dragon Age at Gamescom, apparently it is not going to be there. So if I make the video about talking about Gamescom, it's probably not going to have anything related to Dragon Age in there, because they already said that there won't be any news from it. So we'll see what happens in this month anyway. Before we get into the other interviews, because there's a bunch of other interviews, I want to just talk about some of the miscellaneous news that came out. In one of the interviews, they mentioned that, including Rook's lines, there are 140,000 lines in the game, plus 700 characters to meet, which for a linear game, that is wild to hear. I don't know if other games had that. I know that Baldur's Gate had a really big amount, and so did Cyberpunk, but this wild to hear, because I don't think Dragon Age or bioware games have had that much. I think the most was like 80,000 lines, which is crazy. They also mentioned a while ago that the EA app will not be required to play Veilguard, which is an absolute win. They also mentioned that it's going to be Steam Deck verified, which is great to those who have one. I don't have one, but good for them. They also announced all the writers for the characters, a Twitter account of the name of Phalason Lives. They posted all of them, so I'm going to just put that here. Barrack Tetris by Mary Kirby, Lace Harding by Shirley Chi, Eve Gaulis by Barain Bati, Lucanus Delamorte, I think that's how you pronounce it, by Mary Kirby, Emmerich Volkerin by Sylvia. I'm not going to try to pronounce this name, the last name. I'm so sorry, but I cannot pronounce that. I even tried to Google how to pronounce that. Cannot figure it out at all. I'm sorry. Davrin by John Dombrow, Valar Luteri by John Epler, and Tash by Trick Weeks. Which I need to mention that Belara's name is not Lutera, which they kept posting everywhere that was Lutera. It is actually Luteri? Lutere? It's one of those with the ending of an E. I cannot pronounce that. I like the actual one that matched her ending of her name. It just sounded better. Also, it was just easier to pronounce. But they should have said that 2 weeks ago, so I would have been able to say it. They also posted, and I seen it on a Twitter account, that EA had their quarterly report, which I cannot say for some reason today. They said that they had their quarter 3, and that Dragon Age will be released during that time, which is October 1st to December 31st, which isn't surprising, because I said that it wasn't going to come out in September. I said it was going to be around November or something like that. It was going to be, I thought November because of Dragon Age Inquisition. I think Dragon Age Origins came out like November 9th or something like that. So that was what's going on, and I'm glad, because everyone kept saying that it was coming out in September, and I don't know why. That did not make any sense, but whatever. Another thing that I'm going to add on there is that the Twitter username Phalason Lives also quoted something from Jeff Grubb out of a video that he had, or a podcast. It mentioned that the last that he heard, that it was going to be in October, that it was going to release in October, and that was a few weeks ago, or weeks ago, and that could have changed. And he also mentions that he's thinking that it's still going to be October or late October, but it could shift from then and the time that they announced the date, and that he expects it might be that time because that's what they've been aiming for a while. And for the last few months, so late October for Dragon Age the Veilguard, every time he hears about the game or publicly about the game, people seem pretty confident about it, that it's infectious. Also adding on to it, Dark Horse might have accidentally leaked the date for Dragon Age the Veilguard art book and the date for the game. I wanted to mention this, even though they, made a post talking about that it wasn't completely confirmed, which sometimes happens because they accidentally leak something and they're like, it's not it, guys, don't do that, and then it's actually the date. So it looked like it had a lot of stuff on there. So I'm gonna guess it's around that time. So I'm gonna feel like, because a lot of people, they see a lot of EA games come out on like Tuesday or Friday. So like people were saying, it's probably gonna be on like the 22nd or the 29th that Dragon Age comes out. So that's just a little thing. It could be debunked when they actually announce the date. But I do find it strange that they did release the date like that. So that's something to talk about. And some sadder news is that Game Informer has closed, meaning all of the work that the journalists, including the Veilguard articles, are gone and only found on archives, which was posted that some people on Reddit have archived them. Unfortunately, there will be all of my links that were in the other videos, they cannot be used because it just goes to the landing page, and it's just really sad. because that really sucks, because a lot of the stuff on there, I talked about it, but I didn't go into serious detail, but I did go into a lot of detail, especially the later ones. I did go into a lot of detail in, and I'm super glad that I was able to do that, because now it's gone and all of these people's work is gone, and it just really sucks. I just wish the best for them to get back on their feet. I know that Bungie recently fired a bunch of people, like over 200 people, and that's also happening in the gaming industry. So I just wanted to mention these, because I know that it's been really hard in the gaming industry, especially for devs and stuff like that. And now journalists are really going through it too. And just a lot of stuff is going on in the gaming industry, and it's just really sad. So I just hope that they get their footing, and I really wish that they just sold Game Informer more, because maybe they would have had a chance to keep most of their workers, but it sucks. And I also wanted to mention, not too long after from when I'm recording this, they posted, someone who was working for Game Informer actually posted a nice little thing. I'll put it on the screen from someone else's tweet, that they actually posted a really nice like goodbye thing, talking about it, how they deserved it, and also putting the names of the people who worked there. And then their Twitter got nuked by GameStop, I'm guessing, because after that there's no way to see it. Even I posted on Twitter talking about how it's sad that they're gone. You cannot see the tweet that they posted, which apparently people believe was made with AI. I have no idea if that's true, but that's pretty bad if they made their original goodbye with AI. But I can't stand GameStop. It just sucks that these people they were doing stuff like on their normal day, and then suddenly on like a Friday or something like that, they just lost their job. So, and it just sucks, and that's why it's just horrible. Moving on from that sad news, we're going to talk about the actor strike that's going on. The actor strike that's happening, happened during the time I was editing my last video, so I popped it up on the screen. And this time I'm talking about it because they're going against AI, which I'm absolutely fine about, because as a person who is an artist, I absolutely can't stand AI and stuff like that, because it's just stupid. A lot of these people like to always talk about how it's gonna save the future and blah blah blah, but AI is stupid, and it doesn't really work as well as people want it to work. And it's just useless, because in the end, people not watched movies. AI is never good. So I'm like, whatever, people can barely find jobs now, and you guys want to get rid of more jobs because of robots? Duh, that's dumb. Like, I feel like this is just dumb, and I'm glad that they're striking for that, because people should not be afraid that their voice is going to be taken. I know that the lady, Erica Lindbeck, I think that was her name, Lindbeck, I'm pretty sure she got bullied off of Twitter at one point because she said she did not like people using her voice that she made for Vtuber for weird stuff or racist stuff or anything like that, and people were bullying her, and she left for a while, and then I think she came back. But it just shows that people don't care about how people feel about their voices being taken, and these people don't care just at all. And that's why I'm absolutely fine with them absolutely restricting AI and stuff like that, because it just sucks. And that's why I'm in solidarity with the actors, and that's why I said a lot of my Dragon Age news will be slowing down if they tell people not to post video game stuff about stuff like EA and stuff like that, because they are going against these studios. They're going against companies like EA, Insomniac, and other certain companies that they can't basically work. So I'm just gonna say that if they ever say like not to talk about certain games from these companies, I'll probably just move myself away from it for a bit and talk about stuff maybe like Yakuza, if that's okay, and things like that. I just want to make sure I'm in solidarity, because I don't like AI, and I think these people deserve better, and I don't think they have come to terms with something yet. So until then, while this video is being recorded, I'm with them, and I hope that they get what they deserve and more, basically. I think that's all for miscellaneous news. We're going to talk about the interviews in just a moment. I will talk about quickly that they had an interview. It wasn't really an interview. It was more about, like, I guess, kiss, marry, kill kind of thing. You know, that they had something like that, and they were talking about how they were like choosing characters and stuff like that, and saying which ones that they would basically banish, befriend, or romance, or whatever. And the video is not that big of a deal. They don't talk about that much news. If you want to watch it, it's more funny to just watch it than to actually hear someone else talk about it. But they do mention bears, and how the dude John Epler, he's afraid of bears, and almost every time he wasn't going to romance someone, or he did romance someone, he mentioned that he was afraid of bears and needed someone to protect him from bears. And they even have little like quips about Dragon Age Inquisition and how there's bears. They talk about how all of them will romance Varric. They all agreed to romance Varric, and that Hawk is scared of spiders. They also mention that Zevran has daddy issues, which I would like to counter and say mommy issues.
You're right. It is like my mother's.
If you play through Dragon Age Origins, you know that this man mentions his mother all the time. Voice lines, just talking to him, he mentions how he loved his gloves that reminds him of his mother.
Gloves? You're giving me gloves?
He mentions how he never knew her. He mostly mentions his mom. I don't think he ever mentioned his dad much after that, so just wanted to mention that because I think it's funny that they said daddy issues, and I'm like, we're talking about the wrong character. That's Jacob from Mass Effect. Now, the one that has mommy issues is definitely Zevran. In more interview news, there was a magazine that came out called Edge magazine. I think this is European, I'm not exactly sure, but I seen other people tossing around information about it, and a lady named Kayla Elizabeth posted this on Twitter, so I'm gonna borrow her tweet to report the news that was on there. Companions will fall in love with people of this world. Companions will leave and do their own things. For example, Neve will go and investigate an abduction quest, and you can stumble upon her in Minrathis. You can join companions as you meet them out in the world unexpectedly, which is interesting. If you do not engage with companions-focused events, they'll resolve on their own and have interesting implications. Companion arcs do tie into the main themes of the critical path, but they have their own unique challenges and villains and take place over the course of many intimate moments. Some companion quests involves combat and some don't. Sometimes certain companions will have to accompany Rook. The world exists as it does because of Solus. Everything can tie back to a person who, to some degree, thought they were doing the right thing. Rook has access to runes and an ultimate ability. So a total of 5 abilities for Rook and 3 for each companion. Veilguard has exploration but story as a urgency, unlike Inquisition. Veilguard does have ray tracing. I will say this, and I say this a lot, and I think a lot of other people say that I know some people do not like the elves and stuff like that and how they connect, and I do think that they might have connected a little too much because, okay, in Dragon Age Origins, they made it seem like there are multiple things that exist, and to make it basically seem like Solus created everything, it also still makes the whole thing with Androstate's ashes just so weird, and why they burned a lady to, like, to the ground. They don't really have an explanation for that because they moved so far away from a lot of the stuff that happens in Origins to mostly focus on the elves, and I think that's one of the only issues that I do have with Inquisition and Veilguard, is that it just seems like everything's gonna lead up to the elves and not explain any of the other mysteries that were in Dragon Age Origins. That's just a little thing that I have to say, but moving on. Now we're gonna go to the next video that I wrote notes for first, and that was the IGN interview. Let's jump into that. Alright, let's go on to the IGN video about romance. The Dragon Age cast and crew tells us who they're going to romance. This video features John Epler, the creative director, the creative performance director, Ashley Barlow, and the voice actress for Harding, Ali Hillis. The video starts off with the creative performance director, Barlow, talking about what it is to be a performance director and what it does. And when asked about what's the hardest part about bringing characters to life in a series like Dragon Age, Barlow says it takes time and working with the changes that happen, and that it's a collaborative process. Next, Epler was asked about Twinter and about familiar faces. Epler mentions that familiar faces will be returning and wants fans to experience them themselves and when they play the game, and says they want the fans to see how the characters returns and what role that they play. And also mentioning that obviously Solus and Varric are returning. They mention characters that are returning from the comics, which has been mentioned before, but I will tell you a spoiler little thing on the screen and you guys can skip ahead, but I'm going to mention the characters. Returning characters are the Wardens, Antoine and Evka from the short stories, and the next characters are from the Missing Strife in Ireland. We've seen them before. Spoilers over. We're moving on to the next part where Hillis was asked about the Inquisitor could get flirty with Harding, but nothing happened, and how excited Hillis is about returning as Harding and being romanceable. Hillis says that she was excited to be back in the game and how she had no idea that she would be back, and how fans' responses were so warm and incredible. She also mentions how fans would ask her if she had a photo to sign for Harding at cons, and she didn't know that Harding made such an impact as the work. Rio mentions how fans were upset that Harding wasn't romanceable, which I might add was understandably so, and that Harding is the first dwarf romance. The interviewer asked why did they bring her back in such a big way? Kepler says it was mostly to the fans' reactions when Inquisition released, and that fans obviously loved Harding and wanted to romance her. He also says that it comes down to the role that the players play and how the story, and they wanted a character that had connections to Inquisitions and the events of Veilguard, and continues saying that Harding was a natural choice for the role. He wasn't that huge of a character like Solus and Varric, but someone who could explore on their story. Carlo says that Harding brings a veteran energy to the group and a grounding voice, and seeing something over the course of time. The interview asked how they felt about fans thirsting over the companions that were shown, and Epler says that it's surprising in some cases, but knows how the fans are and passionate about romance characters, and also mentions how fans were very excited for Emmerich and how they have a lot of intentions to romance him. He says that maybe people know who they're going to romance, but after knowing getting to know these characters, maybe that will change. I will say this, I always stick to my romances in games, even if their romances are terrible and I don't like them, and I'll just choose somebody else the next playthrough. But my romance is definitely going to be Davrin, so I'm definitely going to romance him, so that's not going to change. I'm sticking with that to the end. If I want another character in the next playthrough, I'll definitely do it in the next playthrough. That's just me though. Epler says Lucanus is the one that he is romancing in his playthrough. I like to add a side note that his name is actually pronounced Lucanus, but I like to say Lucanus. I don't know. It's just harder for me to say Lucanus. I might switch in between them in certain videos, but I feel like I'm always going to say Lucanus, and it's going to change definitely when I play the game because I'm going to hear it more often. But when I read the words on my notes, I'm like, Lucanus. That's how it's pronounced. Also, I just spread it that way. Once again, I still complain that in their trailer, they should have just said the names of the characters in there. Like, have Varric just say Lucanus, or, I mean, Lucanus, Emmerich, or Rick, whatever his name is. Like, whatever her name was. Tosh? I think, but I call her Tash? Whatever. Like, I feel like they should have done that. That's just me. Anyway, moving on. Next, Tevinter was mentioned how it's technologically and magical more advanced than Ferelden, and how culturally shocked the fans will be for it as was Dorian in Dragon Age Inquisition. And Epler says it was the opposite for Dorian, as he's seen the Winter Palace in the game and thought it was cute, as Tevinter has taken magic to a degree that nowhere else has, and since he grew up there, it's not surprising. And that Epler doesn't think that there's going to be as cultural shock. Tevinter does treat mages differently than other places, and that mages are at the top, but he says that he's interested in seeing how fans will interact with the world, as it's very different from other places that we've been to before. And the last question was if Dorian will return into the game, and he said to wait and see. I will say this, I do believe that Dorian will return in the game. I just don't feel like that they're not going to take this a chance to bring him back because they're going to Tevinter. I feel like they're going to bring him back. I feel like I'm going to make a video talking about characters I think should return to Dragon Age. And one of them is, I know it's going to be Dorian. There's even concept art of what looked like Dorian was in there. And so I'm going to guess Dorian is supposed to come back. That's just personally me. I don't believe they're not going to do it. At this point, we know that there's characters that are going to return, that they're gonna have to return, or it would just be weird not to make them return. So I'm going to talk about that probably in a video. Characters I want to return and characters I don't care to see return or be in Dragon Age the Veilguard, because I know some people ask for some of the weirdest characters, and I'm just thinking about this in a plotline aspect of it. So I think for Dorian to come back, that makes sense. I just don't know how big of a part he'll have in this, because obviously he could be like Alistair in Dragon Age Inquisition, where he was just King Alistair and he's just like, get out of Redcliffe. Or he could be like Morgan or Liliana in Dragon Age Inquisition and have a bigger role, but we have no idea. So, we'll see. The next video we're going to talk about is Dragon Age the Veilguard Won't Leave Players Behind. This one is a longer one, so I wanted to put this after the IGN video, and then we're going to talk about another one that's from the Gamer. So let's jump into this one. This one has Epler and Barlow in there, so let's talk about that. The first question was how it felt working on Veilguard for so long and now being able to talk about it. And Epler says it's amazing and a thrill to talk about in the past month and showing off all the hard work that the team has done. Barlow mentions how it's the first time that she's been able to talk about it and celebrate all the work that's been done. Second question. What was the mission statement / objective for the new Dragon Age game? Epler says that it came down from what they left off from in Trespasser and how they set up the future in taking that story to a conclusion. And he continues saying that it's always about taking a specific story and building it into a fantastic single-player RPG. Barlow adds that they wanted you, the player, to be their own hero of the story and that was their North Star, and that's why players will get the game and play it and make their own choices and speak to who they want to speak to, choose their own consequences, and live with them. She adds that she's excited to get the feedback from the players too. Third question, have other RPGs affected Dragon Age the Veilguard's release? Epler says that it's fantastic how the RPG space has opened and how it's a good thing that in the past year and / decade that the fantasy RPG genre attracts large audience, and for them it's a good thing that there are a large audience looking for something that they are giving them and looking for a new story, set of characters, a new game. And he continues saying that they kind of always knew what the game that they were building and that they were taking lessons to seeing what other people are doing and integrating it into their own game, and that it's been a fantastic opportunity, and adding that it's exciting to go into the RPG market as fans hunger for more new stories and more fantasy. Fourth question, will Veilguard introduce itself to new players? Epler says he wanted the beginning of the game to be the final mission of a different game and set the stakes early on, and to do so in a way that allows them to, again, for fans who have been with the franchise for a while and who have played Dragon Age Origins 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, that this is for them and they're going to be able to jump into it and feel like they're going back home, and for new fans too. Adds on that they didn't want players to have to feel like they have to go back and play all the games and see all the other media. So they made sure that they were balancing and that they think it's been fantastic, and that going with the philosophy that they wanted to be respectful before and being opening and inviting to new players. Well, it says that it really unfolds. The writing did a good job of jumping the past with the future, and that you can see that the characters that are coming back, but says that she can't talk about that. They love hyping up these characters. I really hope that they're good returning characters, because I'm going to talk about that soon. The fifth question was how do characters grow in Veilguard? Heffler says that creating characters in stories are a push and pull process, and that they have to figure out what the characters makes in the context, but the characters also develop. Sometimes they make a character with a unique perspective and they have to change the critical path of the game to allow those characters to show that perspective in a more interesting way. Rello adds that the performance and writing lays out. For example, they wanted the characters that offered the more differences in choices to bring along. Barlow continues to asking the question of how do these 7 characters diversify and oppose each other, fight and get along with each other, and to make sure that each character is unique and have their own arc and feel fully developed. And Barlow believes that they did that with these cast characters. Epler also continues on saying that casting and having the actors come along and learning the voices, that it changes the characters too. We also talk about how it takes in gameplay into consideration and what roles these characters play on the team and doesn't make sense to them, and mentions how it's exciting to see these characters take shape and turning into something that feels like real people. Like Scout Harding wouldn't do that, and Bellara would be interested in that, and basically using those as examples and saying that opportunities, and that they find opportunities to bring them into the main story and also giving them their own arc. Sixth question, how do the voice actors affect the characters? Barlow says that it's a collaborative process, and that, like Epler said, that the actors influence the writing and that it's a push and pull process. And that Epler adds on that as a writer, he listens to both sides, the art and the performance side of things. It says that it's a collaborative process, but says that they do have boundaries, how these characters can shift, as if they shift too much they may not make sense into the story, but says that they have the flexibility that when good ideas come from anywhere, they should listen to. Seventh question, are you prepared for the fan? And Epler says that they're not entirely sure how it's going to change for them, even though he's been at BioWare for around 17 years. It's exciting to see how passionate fans are, and that it's hard to tell someone like the actors that they said they have to see it themselves. Tumblr mentions how one of the actors walked up to him and questioned the long line of people at the signing at Comic-Con, and he had to tell them that it was actually for them, which is kind of wholesome. That's kind of cute. Tumblr ends that part saying that he doesn't know how to prepare anyone as it's been a long time, but he's excited to see how it goes. 8th question. How do you balance old and new gameplay mechanics? Tumblr says that each game at its core focuses on the combat to feel strategic and tactical. Tumblr thinks in each case is the right combat for the right game, is that right gameplay in the case of Origins is one thing, Dragon Age 2 was another thing, Inquisition was another thing, but each builds on another lesson of the other games. So each one had a lesson, they learned from that, and then they continued. So Veilguard is all about the strategic layer that's finding that tactical layer and also brings the moment-to-moment gameplay, and that's where the video ends. Next interview we're jumping into is an exclusive interview with the directors of Dragon Age: The Veilguard from The Gamer. This video features Barlow and Epler again. This one's a shorter one, I'm pretty sure, so we're just gonna get jumping into this real quick. They mentioned how Dragon Age: The Veilguard is something fresh and it takes what they've done already before and bump it up. They talk about the combat changing and what happens with all the games, and also that they wanted to make fantastic builds and deep customization system during making. When mentioned about places that they like in the world, Barlow says that she likes Minrathous and Epler likes Ravani for the tropical feel, as they've never been able to do that before. They talk about dark and light and how it feels, and the writers feel like that they were balancing it well with humor and the other Dragon Age games as examples. I'm talking about like Alistair and using his quips and stuff like that, and you know, Varric. And I'm like, okay, as long as the humor isn't weirdly placed like Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm good. When they asked about their favorite characters, Epler said that he liked Emmerich and Barlow couldn't choose, so she said all of them. When asked about returning characters, they did not mention any returning characters. They said you have to wait and see. When asked about canon in the franchise, they say that there is no canon. That there's no canon, that everyone's world is their own and things like that. And I'm gonna be honest, that's not true. There's obviously a canon in Dragon Age. And even if they don't like to say it, this is the weird thing about fans. They like, there is no canon. There obviously is a canon. I don't know why you guys get offended by this. There's obviously a canon. Because if there was no canon, the Dragon Age 2 wouldn't have happened. Because Dragon Age 2 ruins a lot of choices for people. Like me. For me, I had Anders go off and join the Wardens, but then he ended up joining back the Circle and then coming back and joining the Warden sometimes and finding a found family in there. But that obviously changes because in a year after Dragon Age Origins, he's in freaking Kirkwall. So that's an obvious change. So there's no way you can say that there's no canon in there, because obviously stuff that happens in the comics and things like that, there's obviously happening. So I feel like there's gonna always be a canon to Dragon Age, and even if they don't like to say it, they do have one. When asked about choices, they talk about how making choices and having consequences no matter what, that there's no easy option. And I want to say quickly that reminds me of Mass Effect 3's ending. And no matter what, you made a choice, they all had consequences. And that was not good. That was not good at all. But I feel like the make that you have so many consequences in there, that's not fun, okay? I don't want to do that. Oh yeah, to save that character that's really meaningful to the story, you have to let an entire village burn down. That's not a good choice, okay? That's not a green one. And then if you let this village burn down, if you save the village and that person dies, that's not a good consequence either. Like that, and I hope that that's not like what they actually do. That there's choices like that where you're like, I want to save everyone, and they're like, nope, that person dies or the village dies. Your choice. And I just hope that they don't do anything like that. They also talk about customization and rehashing stuff, so I won't talk too much about that. I'm hoping this month, when they talk about more stuff for the roadmap, that they'll also mention stuff related to customization, so we can actually have a deep dive into that, and I'll make a video about it. They also mention the comics and what characters are appearing, which I mentioned in my spoiler video and earlier on, so if you watch that part, they mentioned those things. They also mentioned that this game has 140,000 lines, which I mentioned before, and 700 characters, and I have to say that's still a lot. And I'm guessing this is the interview that I came from that news. And I also wanted to mention that they said that they are excited for fans to get their hands on this game, and that's about it for this week. So, yeah. that was that, and I had some opinions on that, but yeah, that's about it for this, and I have a few more things that I want to talk about that was more in the miscellaneous, but that just came out recently, so I just want to add that on to here. Alright, so adding on to this, I'm going to be talking about these tweets that came from someone on Twitter. This is their name. I cannot pronounce it. I wanted to say it was Hungary, and I thought it was that for years, but it's not. We're going to talk about these tweets that they were posting about John Epler answering some questions. When asked about the dialogue wheel and that it's coming back, and they asked is there going to be something like the diplomatic, humorous, and aggressive tones, will they be similar in Veilguard? He says that they're not going to be in the same degree, and that you'll have your freedom to play your rook differently and who they're talking to. You can be kinder to your companions, but your tone choices will have an impact within conversations and sometimes with specific characters across multiple conversations. So that's interesting. When asked if you can make your elves muscular, he said, reasonably so, but you won't be making anybody that looks like, massive bodybuilders. When asked about a follow-up about humans and Quinaris being muscular, Epler says that larger lineages like Quinari especially are bigger and by default, and that their upper bounds are going to be bigger, but modeling and animation they did want to have some limits, but your rook will be pretty reasonably muscled regardless of lineage. When asked about if quests were time sensitive, Epler mentioned that quests will go away and technically fail if you don't address them. But be very clear that this is not an in-game timer, but rather that if you progress through the story forward, that said that they wanted to make a signpost as much as possible. So they're saying that if you go through too much of the story, you can ruin a quest. And I think they did that in another game I played, but it wasn't that big of a deal as long as you don't go too much through the story. And I usually try to finish up all my side quests before I go through the main story, so that's not that big of a deal for me. When mentioning about cursing in the game, or cussing, whatever you want to call it, he said you'll be able to do it and leave it up to the choice, but sometimes cursing is exactly what the situation demands. I don't curse in my day-to-day life, so I don't really care about that. When asked about faction symbols, they said every faction has their own symbol, including the Veilguard themselves. You may have seen it in some of the art that's out there. Moving on, when they asked about blood effects after Rook hits an enemy, they said that the environmental effects that persist on the characters, and depending on the environments you're traversing, they're subtle, but they're there. When asked about full body tattoos and how many are there to choose from, Epler responded saying that he doesn't know exactly the number, but there are quite a few, and there's some full body ones as well, and you can control the colors and opacity of them too. When asked about which one is the most fashionable faction, John Epler responds with the crows because black leather and feathers isn't a look that he can pull off in real life, but his rook could, so that's interesting. Also, they mentioned someone named Timothy Oliphant or something like that. I think that's how to pronounce the last name. But I'm pretty sure that guy's like super skinny in real life. Like, okay, maybe he has a little bit of jacked arms on the top upper half, but he's not that skinny. He's actually pretty skinny, so I'm weirded out that they use that as a reference for elves. That means elves are pretty skinny then, because that's not that different. I know it's better than Inquisition, but it's still a bit weird to just say. I don't know. But that's it for now. I don't think there's any more miscellaneous news for now. I don't feel like looking for more, but it's been a while and I've been recording for about 2 hours now and just making sure I got everything right. So yeah, that's it for now for all of these things. And if you're wondering why there's no video for the last few days, that's because I caught a cold. I don't know if I sound differently in this video. I'm gonna check, but I fell ill right after Comic-Con, and I was trying to get better the entire week that I uploaded my video, and then trying to get better afterwards and stuff like that. And I felt better by Monday, like I think Tuesday I felt better, and then I was gonna record, but my audio's been messed up since Monday, so I could not record. And then I finally got a new mic to borrow, and it's not my best mic in the world, so I don't know if I sound differently because of that too. But yeah, I'm just trying to get something out. I'm gonna try to get this video out. Hopefully I can get this out. I know this is gonna be a long video, so I'm gonna try to get this out, and I'm gonna try to get some other videos out soon. But until then, this is your video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the support in the recent videos and all the stuff that you guys could have done. I'm super thankful for that, so thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
missing you. Please understand, without you, I'm dying.